I believe. So Trump has the power to completely remove China from the region. I hope that he uses it. Ron, I mean, he can finish the job, and I think he needs to do it, but I'm not sure that he wants to. He's now been talking about trying to come to some agreement with Iran. I don't want to see another Obama type agreement in Iran, and that's what people have been talking about. So, if a war is important enough to start, it's important enough to win. And I hope that President Trump, who started this war, wins it. He can do it. It's just a question of whether he is going to be intimidated by American public opinion or not.
Well, there you go. Well, music is playing now. What do you think of that, though, real quick?
I get it. China has all of a sudden has just decided to buy their oil from the United States. Their tankers are streaming right now to our shores to buy oil. Who would have thunk that for sure? But the times are changing.
Technocracy.news.
Are changing.
Technocracy.news. Be sure to be back tonight. Ed Dowd is my guest tonight. Thanks for watching. Take care.
You're watching Worldview 2.
Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff operations officer, assisted the national security team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the vice commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
This is why people are frustrated and, quite frankly, pissed off about insurance. I'm at the urgent care today to get a sports physical for my son to play football this season. And there's a mother checking out from a sick visit with her child, and they charge her $200. And she says, wait a minute, I was told it was $150. And she said, oh, that's the cash price, but you have insurance, and we've got to charge you the insurance price. And the mom said, well, just ring it up. I'll just pay out of pocket with cash. And I said, no, we can't, because Blue Cross requires us, if you've got insurance, we've got to run it through Blue Cross. And the mom said, well, that's not fair. And I have insurance. I should be getting a better price, right? And she said, no, if we charge you a cash price, Blue Cross will take us out of their network. So we've got to charge the Blue Cross price. And that just seems asinine to me. And that's why people are frustrated with insurance. It doesn't work the way that it should. And quite frankly, the solution, if you're in a traditional insurance plan, you got to ask yourself the question, why wouldn't an insurance company allow you to pay a better price to them? And why isn't an insurance company like Blue Cross, as big as they are, getting a better deal? The way we set our self-insured plans up, most of my clients, they set it up that if a member's able to get a better cash price, it's actually accepted by their insurance plan, which makes total sense. If they can reduce the cost of a claim, shouldn't we be doing that? That's how you lower the cost of insurance.
Friends, welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Whistleblower Wednesday again, and we're live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. Well, if that opening video didn't make your blood boil, I don't know what will. Millions of Americans are pissed off about health insurance. Premiums are through the roof. Deductibles are higher than ever, and coverage, it feels like it's shrinking every single year as time goes by. It often seems like the deck is stacked against working families and small businesses. Well, today we're pulling the curtain back on what's really driving your cost. We're going to show you how hospitals have become a major problem through massive consolidation. We'll expose how the entire system isn't designed to even treat patients over the long term. It's all about treating symptoms only and keeping you coming back for more. And we're going to dig into how big pharma and pharmacy benefit managers are quietly contributing to the skyrocketing prices through hidden payments and preferred drug lists. And joining me today is Chris Hamilton. He's a partner at Hotchkiss Insurance in Texas. Great day for Texas today. Chris leads their employee benefits consulting practice, and he specializes in managing healthcare and insurance costs to improve benefits coverage, reduce expenses, and deliver better employee health outcomes with over a decade of experience in corporate finance. He's advised clients across private equity, oil and gas, and much, much more. Chris, welcome to the Rob Maness Show. Let's get into these hidden facts that Americans need to hear about their health care.
Yep. Thank you for having me, Rob. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, I appreciate you, man. And folks, you probably recognize him. He's the man from my cold open video, and you're going to see some more. You've got some great videos on your TikTok account, which is at Benefits Insider, if I remember correctly, Chris. And I like to use cold opens to coming back from my breaks, and they were perfect for this show. So you made my day easier. I appreciate it.
Not what I expected. Logging on to see a video of myself. It's a little awkward seeing that, but hey, let's go. Let's do it.
Let's go, man. Hey, so big picture wise, what the heck? How did things get so broken, and what is it that's really broken here with our healthcare system?
Ooh, you could go all the way back to the 40s, looking at what happened during the Eisenhower administration and with high inflation, wage controls, the high tax rates that we paid corporately. If you think about from that standpoint, employers needed to be able to offer an enticement to get somebody to come work for them. If you offer them an additional $10,000 because of the super high tax rates that we had, it was a very nominal increase in pay to them. So what could you give them? You could give them health insurance, and the government actually gave tax breaks to employers and employees if they used health insurance through their employer. And that's ultimately what set us down this path of employer-sponsored healthcare in the United States, compared to other countries like in Europe, Canada, where they have socialized medical programs or health insurance programs. So we have a very different setup here in the United States. I'm going to fast forward, skip a lot of the boring stuff of the history behind health insurance, unless you want to dig in there. But I think one of the biggest pivotal things of where we are today that led us here is the passage of the Affordable Care Act in 2010. And it was phased into law in 2014 and 15. And this really changed the dynamics in health insurance and healthcare in a number of ways. Most people are familiar with if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. A lot of these promises that were made. One important thing to know, and the average listener needs to know this, is the Affordable Care Act was really insurance reform. It was not healthcare reform. And it's often referred to as healthcare reform, but and nowhere in that legislation was there any sort of provision to increase the number of healthcare providers. In fact, it's done the opposite, and which is one of the big friction points we can talk about. But let's talk about what did happen with that law. Just to remind everybody, initially we were all required as individuals to have appropriate care, qualifying health insurance. So now we're mandated to buy something that we weren't required to buy before, or we pay a penalty. And employers, because we have a predominantly employer-sponsored health insurance ecosystem, employers were required to offer health insurance to their employees and make it affordable, or they also pay a penalty. And insurers were required to remove all lifetime limitations, and it actually increased the amount of coverage. That's not a bad thing. So a number of those things we might disagree with, but it was the opening domino that was kicked over that's created a lot of the problems that have manifested over the last 12, 13, 14 years in this kind of post-Affordable Care Act. ACA, I'll refer to it as that. That's what it's known in my industry as the ACA or Obamacare. It's created a lot of those issues. But I would just kind of take the 30,000 foot view here. What people need to understand is what in the world happened in health insurance and what in the world happened in health care. We often talk about those things as the same thing, but they're not.
Right.
Insurance is just one mechanism that we use to pay for health care. So health care is going to the hospital to have a baby, seeing your doctor because you're sick, walking into a pharmacy to buy medication. That's buying health care. We often use health insurance as a means to pay for our health care, but it's just one of the means that we use. You can walk in and pay cash. There's a number of ways you can buy your health care, but oftentimes we're conditioned, we use health insurance. So let's talk about what happened in health insurance first, and then we can talk about what happened in health care. It's a dual path. Both industries followed a very similar playbook, and it's important for people to understand this because it really explains why, and then we can get into what to do about it. Does that work for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very interested on the healthcare insurance issue because I've run for office twice for U.S. Senate, and this issue of Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act, whatever you want to call it, and injecting government further into the health insurance system and healthcare system by proxy is really a problem that somebody like me who's grew up in military healthcare all his life, from baby till I retired, and now I'm in the VA system. So I fully understand socialized medicine and the government's influence on it.
Yeah.
I've even led hospital units and provided executive oversight, military ones. So I get that. But why were so many doctors? I remember seeing doctors advocating for the Affordable Care Act. It didn't make any sense to me.
And I can't speak from the perspective of the doctors. The only reason I can see why a physician would advocate for the Affordable Care Act is that they probably didn't know ultimately how it was going to impact their practice. 20 years ago, if you just look at the numbers of how many independent physician practices there were compared to today, it's a small fraction. Most of the physician groups have been acquired either by insurance companies or hospital facilities or private equity. It's one of those three: private equity, hospital systems, and then also, believe it or not, one of the big insurance companies is the largest employer of physicians nationally. United Healthcare has more physicians on their payroll than, and when I say on their payroll, it's through one of their subsidiaries.
Right.
They employ over 95,000 physicians nationally. Most people don't know that. They're the largest employer of physicians. So there's some interesting dynamics. And the question is, people would ask, well, why did that happen? Well, a lot of this had to do with the compliance requirements established by the federal government, the requirements to establish electronic medical records, and a number of other host of compliance requirements that these physician groups were going to have to comply with, which is an additional administrative cost and burden to them. And so the pitch from private equity and hospital groups were, join us, practice medicine, we'll take care of everything for you, we'll handle your billing and all of the other associated administrative burden, and if you're a part of our group, we can establish referral paths and patient flows. So if I'm an orthopedic surgeon, and I'm part of a big hospital system, I know that primary care physicians are going to be forced by employment contract to send me their patients. And that's essentially what happens with all of the specialties. And I'm kind of getting off here a little bit.
That's
so
right.
We're starting kind of on the healthcare side. Rob, imagine 20 years ago, when you looked into a major metro city, in a metro area, how many hospital systems used to be there? And in many of the markets, it could have been 3, 5, or more hospitals.
Yeah.
When you look up now, in many of the metro areas across the country, you see 2. Some markets you have 1. And what happened? It's after the Affordable Care Act was passed, you saw insurance companies consolidating, where 20 years ago there were 13, 14, 15 health insurance companies. All of that power was consolidated into 4. And you can look at them. They're the Blue Crosses, the Cignas, Uniteds, and Aetnas of the world, right?
Right.
And so hospitals, to be able to compete and have leverage and negotiating power against fewer people, fewer entities, they had to consolidate their power. And so what you saw were hospitals merging or hospitals acquiring other hospitals to get a lot larger at scale. The next thing, if you own a facility, hospitals are brick and mortar places that people go to have surgeries and babies and cancer treatments and those sorts of things. You've got to ensure patient flow. How do I get patients? Who sends patients to hospitals? Doctors that have admitting privileges there. So if I'm a hospital and I need to ensure that patients are going to come to my facility and not the one across the street, I need to go acquire those physicians so they become part of our hospital system. And by employment contract, I can dictate to them. And actually on my TikTok page, on YouTube, I've interviewed physicians that have left hospital practice because of that specifically. And they spill the tea to the general populace just of what's actually going on inside of those hospital systems. But the thing that I hear consistently was, I am required, I get a list of specialties. So whether it's oncology, dermatology, orthopedics, they tell me which doctors, when I have a patient that needs to have an orthopedic procedure, you're going to refer to one of these 3 doctors. Whether you know them or not, that's who you're assigned to refer to. Not one of your friends or somebody that you know is a better quality, you're going to send to them, and they get tracked how often they follow those referring patterns. And if they don't follow the referring patterns, they'll get a call from somebody that says, hey, we see that you're not following this. What's going on? Like, why are you not doing what we're telling you to do? And so doctors are being dictated to on how to practice medicine versus doing what's in the patient's best interest. So now, from a hospital, if you're, and I'm not saying hospitals are bad, they're trying to figure out how to compete in this new world. But if I own a facility or I'm running a facility, I'm in charge of this, I need to own primary care and the specialty. So if you just look around now, you now have a really behemoth hospital, maybe 2, and they're buying up physician groups, surgical centers, physical therapy clinics, all of the ologists and primary care physicians they can get. Why? Because they're going to capture a patient wherever they enter their healthcare journey. Sometimes a patient will have an injury and they'll go see an orthopedic surgeon or an orthopedist, and they won't go to a primary care.
Wow.
Or they'll go to a dermatologist, or they'll enter to different specialties versus primary care, or they'll come in through primary care. But wherever you enter the healthcare ecosystem, they've got a solution for you. And once you're in there, they've got their hands around you. And guess what? You're not leaving on their volition. They're not going to refer you out of their system. You're going to get referred when you go to the primary care and you complain of a joint issue. You're going to see a hospital-owned orthopedic surgeon who's going to do the MRI and the imaging studies at a hospital-owned imaging center. And when you need the surgery, they're going to do it at one of the hospital-owned facilities, even if there is a better provider across town that is not affiliated.
That's ringing in my ears as we go to this first break, Chris. Even if there's better quality care, the system has now been designed to refer you to potentially less quality care. We'll be right back with Chris Hamilton. It's Whistleblower Wednesday, and your healthcare system and insurance really should be making you mad.
Introducing Worldview Tube Vault. Over 35 years of radio broadcasts, television programs, documentaries, and ebooks. Plus, Worldviewpedia, our powerful search engine for instant worldview and Bible research. Join for as little as $7.99 a month. And now, Vault members get something brand new, courses. Our very first course is here, the Book of Revelation with Brannon House. 53 in-depth lessons, complete with overview quizzes, walking you verse by verse through one of the most important books in Scripture. Getting started is simple. Go to worldviewtube.com/vault and join today. Already a member? Visit worldviewtube.com, click the person icon in the top right, and log in. Then hover over Vault in the menu and select Courses. That's it. You're in. Join WorldviewTube Vault today at worldviewtube.com/vault.
If you just look at any big city in the United States, this is what has happened over the last 20 years. Anybody listening to this right now is going to resonate with them. In my town, in Dallas-Fort Worth area, 15, 20 years ago, there were 10 hospital systems. And today, we have 2 dominant ones. So when the Affordable Care Act got passed, at that time, you still had independent doctors. You could go into a family office, maybe 1 to 2, maybe 5 doctors. That almost doesn't exist anymore. What the hospitals have done is they purchased other hospitals. They've consolidated, just like the insurance companies did. They consolidated these other hospitals and created one big hospital system. And then to ensure that they got the patients, because I own the building, now I have to have distribution into my hospital facility. And the people that distribute the patients are the doctors. So now I've got to vertically integrate. So what do? I go out and I capitalize on this new onerous system of the Affordable Care Act, and these doctors are now going to have compliance departments and electronic medical records, and this huge burden that a small family office of physicians isn't going to be able to comply with. Andy, join our hospital system and we'll take care of all that for you. And so you saw hospital systems acquire physician groups, primary care doctors, specialists, so orthopedic surgeons, gynecologists, oncologists, dermatologists, and imaging centers, clinics, urgent cares. Basically, they've built out this entire ecosystem, if you will, soup to nuts, because you need to capture patients wherever they enter the healthcare system.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show, and it's Whistleblower Wednesday, and we're talking about the healthcare system and the insurance system that's driving a lot of what you just heard. And my guest today is that man, Chris Hamilton of Hotchkiss Insurance, partner there. Chris, we talked a little bit about that, what you just said in the last segment, but what we were going to dive into next was how did the changes to the insurance driven by the Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare, drive all of those things that we just talked about? Because that's the healthcare piece of it. I don't think a lot of people understand that the bill was about the insurance. And here's a question that hopefully you can answer this pretty simply. I always asked it when I was running against this for U.S. Senate, and that is, why can't we pass a law or repeal a law that prevents me from crossing state lines to buy health care insurance on my own? That was one of the things that we used to pitch against this whole idea.
Question. You said, why can't we pass a law? So let's start with that. If you look at the lobby of healthcare, so that's going to be hospital associations, physician groups, big pharma, insurance companies, just like all of those combined are what we would consider the healthcare and insurance lobby. It's over the last decade, it's over $6 billion spent in Washington, and that is by far the largest lobby in Washington. Just to put it into context for your viewers, it's 2.5 times the size of defense and oil and gas combined. Just wrap your brain around that. Wow. If you add up all of the spending of defense contractors and oil and gas, big oil, and the defense industrial complex, whatever, what people say, right? Those are the big evil guys. This is 2.5 times the size of that, which is mind-boggling. So, and I can send you, I track that data every single year. It's open source data, and I can send it to you just if you want to include it as part of the show notes. It's eye-opening, and it's interesting to see who's contributing the money. So, side topic there. As far as competing across state lines, if you just look at who the insurance companies are, it's the same insurance companies for the most part, except when you're talking about the Blues, the Blue Cross type insurance companies. Those are franchised, and those would be separate competitors. But for the most part, the majority of the market is controlled by 4 dominant, we would call them networks, insurance companies. If you look at what happened to insurance, so I'm going to kind of run a parallel here. I just described what happened with healthcare. Yeah. The insurance piece is where it gets a lot more onerous. So inside of the Affordable Care Act was a provision called the medical loss ratio rebate. Sounds really complicated, but the simple breakdown of what that means is we didn't want insurance companies taking all of our premiums, denying all of our claims, and making a boatload of profit off of the insurance. Pretty noble cause, right? Seems like it on the surface. So essentially, for any large employer, and that means if you've got more than 50 employees eligible, your profit margin as an insurance company is capped at 15%. If you make 16% on all of your policyholders, you've got to give back 1% as a rebate to the policyholders. So at the end of the day, the insurance company, the incentive was to try to say, look, we're not going to let you profit egregiously off insurance, which kind of makes sense. But we locked the front door, but we left the back door completely open for these insurance companies to almost make unlimited profit, which is exactly what they've done. So if you're the CEO, Rob, you run a business. If you're the CEO and CFO of a big publicly traded company and you can only make 15% of your revenue as profit, what do you want to have happen? You want the number to go up. You need the revenue to go up so you can capture 15% of a growing number. That's how you're going to show a return to shareholders, which is exactly what they've done. But you've got to have a willing and complicit party to help you raise the cost of healthcare. Because I'm going to take the money in, I've got to have a place to spend it.
Right.
Well, where do they like spending it? With things that they own. So I mentioned to you, one of the big insurance companies is a large employer of physicians. Guess what? Those physicians bill the insurance company. The insurance company pays them outsized claims payments, and it's transfer pricing. It's just basically saying we're going to overspend the premiums on things that we own, whether it's through our PBM, which is a pharmacy benefit manager. We can talk about more what that is. What's happened is they have vertically integrated. So we talked about consolidation, one insurance company buying another insurance company to make a bigger insurance company, right? That's consolidation.
Yeah.
The next thing we do is what are things that we can own that we can pay ourselves to show that we're spending the money? And that's
is
pharmacy.
That why?
Yeah.
I want you to keep going, but just interrupt you for a question that's related to that. Is that why before Trump admin 1, it was illegal for providers to say what their cash prices were, to post them and everything? You weren't allowed to do that. Is that why? Because that's one of the things driving up the costs for me, little old me going to my doc, and the insurance claim file has a big pad on it. Is that the reason?
I don't know if that's specifically the reason why it would be illegal. I know the insurance companies do not want providers posting what their cash pricing is. And in fact, this whole concept of posting pricing, Rob, you can't walk into McDonald's today and not buy a hamburger without knowing not only the price, but they're going to tell you how many calories, how much sodium, how much protein. In fact, you're going to get all this information about a Big Mac, but you might go buy something that's 1,000, a million times more expensive than a hamburger, and they won't tell you anything about it before you buy it.
Exactly.
Buy it, wait 60 days. And there's been a huge pushback from providers and insurance companies for anybody to post prices of anything anywhere. In fact, pricing transparency was part of the consolidated, just call it another piece of legislation, COVID era legislation, where we thought, hey, this makes perfect sense. Doctors and hospitals should post prices of what things cost so that people can make informed decisions. And you would have thought all hell was going to break loose. It was going to be the end of the world for anybody to post prices of anything anywhere.
I
and
remember.
they finally got we're getting compliance now, but it's not. If you were to go to a hospital's website or an insurance company's website, you wouldn't be able to look up the price of anything because of the way that the format in which the prices are posted. It requires somebody that's building software to have special software created to read it, to be able to report it back. Now, it's just, it's completely mind-boggling the way this works. But the whole point of this is asymmetry of information is power. And whoever has the information has the power. And so the other thing is that insurance companies don't want providers accepting or posting cash prices because it competes and it shows and highlights, just in the example, the opening video that you shared, of the, I don't want to say lack, but the insurance isn't as viable as we think it is to getting the best price. Anytime you look, just about anywhere you go, if you pay cash, you're going to get a better price than insurance. You have to ask yourself the question, why? And it's a big part of this is because providers realize the cost of accepting insurance. There's an administrative burden. When you walk in, anybody that's viewing this as either experienced this or the next time they walk into a doctor's office, they're going to notice it now. First question they ask, what insurance do you have? Can I get a copy of your insurance card? They're going to contact the insurance company. What do Rob's benefits look like? How much is his copay? Then they also keep metrics on this. And I know because I talk to hospital and physician administrators, they know with this particular insurance, they're going to get a denial of the claim X percentage of the time, or they're going to have to file for prior authorization, get pre-approvals. There's this administrative burden. And then by the time they submit a clean claim, it's been kicked back twice, they finally got it approved, they're going to wait 60, 90, 120 days to get paid. There's a value to that. So all this to say, there is this apparatus, this administrative burden, the rigmarole that providers are going to have to go through to ultimately get paid. And there's a cost associated with that. How many administrative staff do I have to employ to collect a dollar? And how many administrative people do I have to hire versus physicians? Believe it or not, there are more administrative staff than there are physicians inside of hospitals and physician groups.
I'm not shocked about that. The same thing happens to government school system.
Who pays for that? Who pays for that? We all pay for that. And so at the end of the day, if I was to walk into a doctor's office and say, hey, Rob, you're my doctor, Rob. Rob, you're not going to have to submit to insurance. You're not going to have to fight to get this paid. You're not going to have to wait 120 days. I'm going to pay you cash right now. How much will you charge me for that visit? Well, with the insurance, I was going to get $200. Sometimes you'll see anywhere between 40 and 60%, maybe more, off of the insurance price to use cash. Sometimes it's a little bit closer, but it's not uncommon to get a 50% discount if you use cash. So you got to ask the question, okay, where's the value in this? And so I think that's a big issue that you're talking about, is transparency of pricing. How do we make it easy for people to buy the healthcare that they need? But the bigger issue, if somebody was wanting to reform, and I don't know if this is where you want to go, but you mentioned passing the law to make it shopping across state lines. A bigger law to pass, and you're starting to see some momentum for this. One was some PBM legislation that was recently passed that's going to require pharmacy benefit managers. And just for those that are not aware, if you have insurance, there is a party that's related to your insurance that helps negotiate the prices of the medications at pharmacies on behalf of the insurance company. What's happened is the big insurance companies have purchased their own manager, if you will, to be more efficient. But essentially, that entity works for the insurance company, and it's become one of the biggest profit centers to them. And I'll give you just a good example here that it will make sense, because people will say, well, why can't I walk into a pharmacy and I get a better price than my insurance company? I'm using a good RX, or I pay cash, or I've got a discount code, and it's better than my insurance price. Well, one of the reasons is, depending on the medication, but this happens quite frequently, somebody will walk in and they'll buy a medication that really is $30, but the insurance price is $50.
Yeah.
You might think to yourself, well, how does that even happen? Well, remember, the profit of the insurance company is capped at a 15% margin. That's all they can make. So they've got to spend the money.
Yeah.
Well, the pharmacy benefit manager tells the insurance company it's $50 for the claim. Insurance company pays the pharmacy benefit manager $50, but they turn around and only pay the pharmacy $30. Okay, do you see now? The pharmacy benefit manager just kept $20 of a $50 claim.
So if the insurance company owns it, it's more money. We got to take another break, Chris. When we come back, we will continue that discussion and go deeper around big pharma. But you talk about and teach people about what the system has done to healthcare itself, about treating symptoms versus the long-term relationship of the patient and the doctor. I'm curious as to how the system drives that and what can be done to reform it. We'll be right back with Chris Hamilton.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work. Try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home. Went to bed.
I think one of the main things I think a lot of people misunderstand about the healthcare system is it's not really designed to treat the root cause of medical conditions. Oftentimes, physician practices, they've got to see high volumes of patients to make the economics work. And that means the physician is actually spending less and less time with a patient. And there's typically going to be techs and nurses doing a lot of the initial triage and assessment. The doctor comes in, will spend anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes on average with the patient, and they're treating symptoms rather than root causes. Patients often leave with either a prescription or a referral on to a specialist. If you compare that to the way medicine was practiced 40, 50, 60 years ago, you had a much longer established doctor-patient encounter, and there was a lot more focus on treating the underlying root cause versus just treating a symptom.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. We're talking about the healthcare system and why everybody's upset about it, and we ought to be. We're paying too much. The credibility of the medical profession is low now, post-COVID pandemic, for a lot of obvious reasons that most people know about. And we don't have the same relationship. So the old phrase, if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. My guest today is Chris Hamilton of Hotchkiss Insurance, and he's a consultant that helps companies and individuals understand what's going on and recommend pathways to help cure whatever it is. Chris, I'm reminded when listening to that of a story. My mom's 85, and about a year ago, she said, "Hey, Dr. So-and-so died." It was her primary care doctor. She'd had him for 45 years. Okay. And she was complaining about having to go out to the clinic that's connected to the hospital now. And her original doctor knew all of her health issues and knew exactly what he needed to do, if he needed to do anything at all. And now she's getting sent to all kinds of specialists and stuff. She's shrugging her shoulders going, why are we doing this?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Just going back to what you said, if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just about anybody watching or listening to this would agree that that did not pan out at all. Going back to that clip, the practice of medicine has changed a lot, primarily because of the insurance relationship. More than half of America is insured on an employer-paid plan, an employer-sponsored plan. Then you look at Medicare and Medicaid. If you look at the dynamics of what's happening in all of those plans, the doctors, there's pressure on those physicians to do more with less. The doctors are not the inflationary part of healthcare on the whole, if you kind of look at this in aggregate here. And so the rates of reimbursement to physicians are not going up, and that's not what's driving the increase in health insurance spend primarily. And so if you're a doctor and you now have this apparatus, this administrative burden that's part of your programming, you're primarily paid through insurance. How are you going to be able to make money? It's through volume. So a lot of the things, which I'm not saying this is a bad thing, it's specialization of labor, right? So this goes back to economics. Why should a doctor who is, let's just say, is paid $200,000 a year take your height and weight? That doesn't make sense. That can be done by somebody else. Why should a doctor who's making $200,000 a year take your blood pressure? That can be done by somebody else. Where the issue has become now is this a volume in a traditional fee for service. The thing about this fee for service, it's like an auto mechanic. The more things that are billed, line itemed out, like I changed the brakes and I changed the oil and I topped off the fluids, the more I can charge for that the encounter. Well, the same thing's happening inside of the doctor's office. And for them, what really pays the bills is insurance primarily. And how do I get, now my reimbursements aren't going up as high. I need to see more patients. I need volume. So that means that doctors are now seeing more patients. They're being paid less per patient on average, just at the net at the end of the day. So I've got to see more. When you walk into a traditional doctor's office, waiting room is usually going to have multiple people, if not full. When you're taken back and you go into an exam room, you hear this quite frequently. The doctor knock on the door next to you, and then across the hall, and then eventually he makes his way or she makes her way into your room.
Right.
What's going on? What you got? Blah, blah, blah. What happens? And then if you time it, that is the case. You generally are having a short encounter, and they're treating the symptom.
Right.
They're not treating a root cause, generally speaking. I've got pain. Okay, let's try referral to physical therapy or pain medication or anti-inflammatories. Come back if you have an issue. Versus, okay, what was going on? How did that pain occur? What were you doing? How long has it been going on? Is there some sort of other structural issue that's going on that we need to address? But that takes more time. Understanding family histories and going back to root cause takes more time that doctors do not have. Doctors want to practice that sort of medicine. The doctors that I've interviewed over my career, they want to be able to practice that form of medicine. Insurance doesn't pay for that type of medicine. Insurance pays for encounters. And it's one of those things that you're seeing now when you look at physician burnout, the number of physicians that are leaving practice of medicine versus coming in, there's a reckoning that's coming. And you see this, look around any city, there's these pop-ups of urgent cares and freestanding emergency rooms. Why are those there? Because we don't have enough doctors to treat patients. We don't have enough primary care general practitioners to treat the population that need access to medical care. Where there's this void, the free market fills, and that's why you're seeing those urgent care practices popping up. But there is where we see a massive shift happening because there's this misaligned. I would call it a misaligned incentive to some degree, where doctors are only going to treat what insurance will pay.
Right.
I have been in a traditional doctor's office where I'm there to be seen for one condition, and I say, "Hey, I'm having this other issue." No, I can't see you for that. You're gonna have to schedule a different appointment. That makes zero sense to me. I'm already here, doc. Come on. But
is that an insurance code thing? Is that why that's that way?
In that particular case, it was. In that particular case, it was. I've also been called back to a doctor's office years ago to read lab reports that could just be given to me over the phone. But to get an office visit and to be able to bill for that, right, there's a difference there. But one thing I am seeing because of these dynamics and physician burnout, you're seeing more and more physicians leaving traditional practice of medicine, working for a hospital system or working for a large private equity-owned physician group, and they're opening up independent practices that do not accept insurance. They work on a subscription basis. And they're popping up like wildfire across the country because doctors want to do what they went to medical school to do, which is to treat root cause, to have a really deep patient-physician relationship, and they want to practice medicine more than just according to what the insurance company will pay or what the traditional manuals say they're supposed to do. Because the practice of healthcare, there is a science to it, but there's also, from what I hear from physicians that I interview, and also my own personal physician, because I use a doctor that does not take insurance, there is a very individualized component to healthcare. What works on a study may not work for this one particular patient. There is specific testing that needs to be done to establish, and I'm a perfect example of this. Heart disease runs in my family. There were a number of tests that my traditional doctors would not run. I went to this specialized doctor that did not take insurance. She ran those tests and ultimately uncovered because they weren't covered by insurance. They weren't supported by traditional the journals at that point. They are now. But helping establish the root cause, individualized practice of medicine, not even though insurance doesn't cover it, their incentive, because you're paying them a subscription, a monthly fee. Think of this like Netflix for doctors. You're going to pay, if you want to binge watch Netflix, it's the same cost as if you never watch it at all, if you're paying a subscription. Well, these physicians are available to you. It's the same doctor, and you have unlimited access to them. What's the doctor's incentive? Since they're not being paid by insurance, they're being paid by you. They've got to create value for you. And that is to keep you happy, healthy, and if you need treatment, get in the office, get the care that you need. But ultimately, if they keep you healthy and happy, you're out of their office.
That's right.
They have more free time. And oftentimes those physicians will make as much money or more than they would in a traditional practice with a fraction of the workload, a fraction of the patient load. Traditional fee-for-service doctors are probably going to see, they're going to have 4,000 to 5,000 patient records. So they may see 4,000 patients in a year. Traditional, on the traditional model, in this concierge or direct primary care model, it's kind of the non-insurance model, they may see anywhere between 300 and 800 patients on their roster. So they get to spend a lot more time. They're treating those patients at a much deeper level, and they really become more of I would call it a healthcare quarterback, like it used to be back in the day. I think insurance has ruined the practice of medicine in our country. And if you compare it to other types of insurances that we buy, your auto insurance, your auto insurer is not paying for your oil change or your tires or tire rotation or the brake job on your car. You're paying for those things. There's a free market that exists, and there's competition, and somebody has to provide value and customer service for you to be willing to go in and handle those things. And the pricing is very transparent. You can easily shop around, right? That doesn't happen in our world in healthcare because insurance has put a sticker price over what the real cost actually is and makes it hard for us to compare. And it makes it hard for providers to do their job.
Yeah, the question arises in my mind listening to you talk about that. Is it easy to find these subscription type providers? Do they group together, or are they all individual doctors? How do they get found by the average person?
There's a number of ways. One, there's if you just Google the term DPC Frontier Mapper, I have no affiliation with this group. It's a website that is an aggregator of these types of practices. There's a couple of different types of practices. One is going to be purely what we would call DPC. It's direct primary care. That means they don't accept insurance of any type. Okay. Then there's some providers who are what we would call hybrid. And that means they will take subscription-based patients, but they're also taking insurance-based patients. And those are for doctors who are trying to transition into this model until they build up enough patient base on the DPC side.
Yeah.
And so there's two different types. That's probably the easiest, or ChatGPT or Google or Claude, direct primary care. It's a growing industry of physicians that have decided to get out of the traditional practice of medicine, working for their patients, not a hospital system, not an insurance company. It's the best way to go.
Yeah, it sounds like the old country doctor concept, which is really what we're talking about. Where a guy is, in a quarter of a county, and those are the people that he sees all the time. All right, well, we got to take one last break, Chris. When we come back, I want to get you back into this big pharma issue too, because that really makes a lot of people mad, especially since the COVID thing. Big pharma making billions of dollars, and really people feel like they're getting medications they don't need or that don't work or that might be harmful to them or their kids, forced on them by that. And I think it's part of the system. We'll be right back.
Take a look at the water you just poured. It looks clean. It tastes fine. But what's really in it? Lead, fluoride, arsenic, chlorine, pesticides, PFAS forever chemicals, pharmaceutical residues, and bacteria. Every single day, these toxins flow straight from your tap into your glass, into your family. It's time for Sentry H2O from Worldview Water. Sentry H2O is the ultimate water treatment technology, designed to remove harmful toxins, balance your water's pH, and enrich it with essential minerals like calcium and magnesium, the way nature intended. From commercial scale systems to whole house filtration to crisp, delicious drinking water right at your kitchen sink and shower, Sentry H2O delivers cleaner, healthier water everywhere you need it. No plumber, no tools, no plumbing knowledge required. Perfect for homes, apartments, rentals, RVs, refrigerators, and more. Because everyone deserves access to clean, healthy water. Visit worldviewwater.net. That's worldviewwater.net.
A lot of these drug manufacturers, they want preferential treatment so that their medications are being filled. They'll give money to those PBMs, the insured-owned PBMs, to give them preferential treatment. So you've probably tried to fill a medication, or you've had an employee try to fill a medication and they say, I'm taking ABC drug, but it's not covered on our plan. They're making me take a different drug. A lot of those choices about what's covered and not covered, what are preferred and non-preferred, is driven by rebates. And it's a game that the manufacturers play with the PBMs, and the PBMs are looking at ways to maximize their revenue. That's another source of revenue they have that's contrary in many cases to your interest, which is you care about making sure your employees have access to the medications they need at the lowest possible cost so that it keeps your insurance premiums as low as possible.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show, man. You don't know enough about the health insurance industry and the pharmaceutical industry and the healthcare industry at all. If you only just watch this show, you still don't know enough. So we'll put links and stuff as we get them into the show notes when they get posted on YouTube and Rumble and those kind of things. My guest today is Chris Hamilton. He is an expert in this area. He's a partner at Hotchkiss Insurance. And Chris, when I listen to that video, I'm like, here's the things that I know just so far from talking to you. And I knew a little bit before because I've advocated for PBM reform a little bit. One is PBMs, pharmacy benefit managers. Sometimes they're owned by the pharmacy, the big ones. Sometimes they're owned by the insurance companies. And I think sometimes the insurance companies own the pharmacies and the PBMs.
Oh, yeah.
And that's driving decisions to be made about what goes into my body. Let's just talk about me, from my physician who's supposed to have my interest at heart to come first, when really they're compromised and conflicted out. Is that accurate? Do I have it right?
You do. You
Oh,
do.
man.
There are relationships that many people don't understand exist between insurance companies, the pharmacy benefit manager, which is who determines what drug is covered and at what cost. They're negotiating the price. But then that same insurance company will also own a pharmacy that gets preferential treatment if you're insured. Many people watching this will know, oh, if I go to this pharmacy, my copay is less.
Yeah.
If I go to a non-preferred pharmacy, my copay is more. Well, we're all price conscious. Is the average American who's living paycheck to paycheck. If I can save $10 or $15, I'm going to go buy it at the pharmacy they tell me to go. Well, that's owned by the insurance company. So what could possibly go wrong if I own the pharmacy, I own the person that negotiates the price of the medication with the pharmacy and the insurance company, and I own who's ultimately paying the determined price that we also help set? That's almost, it seems to me a little bit like racketeering, in a way. It's organized. It's organized.
Yeah, it's definitely organized. And what's that, RICO law?
Yeah. And there's not much competition. I'll hear this all the time. Well, the free market and capitalism and the free markets have not worked, therefore we need to move to a socialized system. And my comment is, show me anything about our health insurance system that is a free market. It is crony capitalism at its finest.
Yeah.
It's exactly what it is. But I did mention something in that video that is actually very important for people to understand. The pharmacy benefit manager is who sets what medications are going to be covered by a plan. So if I need to take I'm going to use cholesterol medication or blood pressure medication, just as an example.
Sure.
There's a number of medications that can be used to treat one of those conditions. And oftentimes, for most medical conditions, there's more than one medication that can be used to treat your condition. But the insurance plan is going to pick one or two of them as their preferred medications. They're going to be covered. So it's basically saying, what are we going to cover and what are we not going to cover? Often what dictates what's going to be covered or not is going to be how much money can we make by covering this medication versus another. Some drug manufacturers are willing to pay. I call it pay to play. I will pay you if you cover my drug. Because if you cover my drug, people are going to want to use their insurance to buy the medications because the medications are not cheap usually.
Right.
And so it also inflates the cost of medications. Because if you've got a drug that you can really sell for $50 as a drug maker, I can make it and sell it and make a profit at $50. But the pharmacy benefit manager, which is the insurance company, says, we want $250 every time this is covered through our insurance. Well, what do I have to charge for the medication now? $300. The $50 I wanted to charge, plus I got to make a $250 spiff payment to the insurance. They just exponentially increase the cost of the medication to come to market, which is mind-blowing to anybody who has common sense. And it's one of the reasons why we should get completely rid of rebates. That's a game that should be, with PBM reform, rebates are going to be required to be paid back to the plan sponsors, but that is not enough. That is not enough. We need to get rid of that.
That's what I was going to ask you. You mentioned PBM reform. I've seen various forms of proposed legislation at the state level, and been asked to comment on it. What are the best reforms for PBMs? It's a complicated system, but what do you think will actually work to make it in our favor, the patient's favor?
Well, one thing that has been passed is that all rebates are going to have to be passed back to the sponsor of the plan. So if you're an employer and and the insurance company is making a rebate on medications that flow through the plan, that money is going to have to come back to you. Another thing that most people don't know is that these pharmacy benefit managers, insurance companies, they set up offshore organizations to help negotiate the price of medications and the rebates established. Technically, insurance companies would say, we've been complying with the rebate law, but they really haven't. Because the way the funds flow is, name big pharma company, Pfizer, Merck, whoever, they pay this offshore company in Switzerland $500. That offshore corporation that's owned by the insurance company, by the way, sends $200 back to their U.S. subsidiary, which is a PBM. The $200 is given back to the employer, but the initial payment was actually $500. You gave us two, but technically, according to the law, you're complying with what you received. That's a game that's being stopped. That's not going to be allowed going forward. As far as pricing transparency, what do medications cost? What are they contracted for? That's something that's coming a step further, which oddly enough, I wouldn't think I would agree with her, but Elizabeth Warren is trying to drum up support for, and I can't remember the name of the bill, but like break up big healthcare. It's something I've talked about for the last 18 months is we need to take a similar approach to what we did with, and I think this is a nonpartisan issue. I think all of us want the same thing, which is affordable healthcare. It doesn't matter if somebody's a Democrat, a liberal, a progressive, a conservative.
Yeah, I'm just laughing because she's one of the architects of making it this way, but go ahead.
She is. Well, there's a lot to unpack there. We don't have to go there today, but
exactly.
As far as, I've talked about what we did with the Bell Communications System back in the 80s. There was a monopoly and it was unfair to Americans. And so we broke that up into the Baby Bell system. And that's essentially what needs to happen with health insurance. And you're seeing states like Arkansas and Tennessee take similar approaches to this, where they say, look, if you're an insurance company or a PBM, you can't own a pharmacy in our state. That's counterintuitive. It's a conflict of interest. You can't do it. We need to take that a step further and say, if you're an insurance company, you can't own a PBM. If you're a PBM, you can't own a pharmacy. And if you're an insurance company, you can't own physician practices, because the vertical integration is giving these companies control. And because there's this veil of secrecy of what everything costs and market payments and those sorts of things, with this asymmetry is giving them too much power.
Yeah.
And that needs to be stopped. And this isn't a political issue. This is a societal issue. It is a drain on our economy, because every dollar that an employer and an employee the people in our community is spending on health insurance and inflated health care are dollars that are not being reinvested into more productive means in our economy, buying houses, buying cars, shopping at local restaurants and stores. That's the economic stimulus. And so it's just being siphoned into this legacy system where there's a handful of companies that profit at our expense, and that's not fair.
It's not fair. Well, we got a question in the live audience. Let's go ahead and take that before we get to the end of the show. Go ahead, Shell.
We have Brandy, sir.
Well, thank you for allowing me to speak, and hello, Colonel, and to your guests. I have a question. I was a Blue Cross Blue Shield subscriber for many years, and I often did get a little bit of pushback sometimes when I would ask for the cash price. I would go into, let's just say, for instance, like an x-ray, a simple x-ray. Most of the time they would give it to me. Sometimes I would get pushback, but they always allowed me to pay that if I chose to. I'm wondering if you know anything that may have influenced that, whether me being able to pay it all the time. I'm wondering if it was maybe more of also a facility issue versus just that particular medical coverage. And that was my question. Thank you so much.
A great question, Chris.
Yeah, I would agree. Great question. One of the things, I'll take this kind of from two perspectives. One, and I have heard this from different providers, that the insurance companies in their contracts, their network contracts. So when Blue Cross or United Healthcare is negotiating with that provider, in their agreement to be in the network is a non-disclosure. And that means that if a patient presents an ID card to the provider, at that point, the provider is not allowed to tell them any other price than what the insurance price is, and they cannot, or they're not supposed to accept a separate payment, which I think is a problem. And that we live in a free society. We should be able, insurance companies should not be dictating how I pay for my healthcare. So I think that's one of the problems. But that what they'll use is a threat of, if we catch you accepting a cash payment instead of running it through our insurance, you're in default of your agreement with us, and we can cut you out of the network. And so there's this symbiotic relationship between providers, because if they want patient volumes, they've got to be in network with the insurance companies. So they don't often want to risk that. And I've experienced that personally. And in Texas, we have different sets of laws that the state has passed that prevent that. But the second piece I would go down is that if you use cash, depending on your state, if you submit that receipt to an insurance company and ask them to apply that to your deductible and your out-of-pocket costs, your accumulation for the year, they won't do that. In Texas,
really?
they're supposed to. Yeah, which doesn't make any sense. It's almost like you would say, hey, insurance company, I just saved you a bunch of money.
Yeah.
This should be good for both of us. But they actually look at it as a threat because what they want is utilization statistics of their network. If you bypass the network, you're kind of undermining them.
It's the bottom line. They got to get that 15% and do everything they can. And the bigger they get, the more susceptible to that type of thinking they get. From what I gathered from our show today, and we've got to do something about it. Well, Chris, tell folks where they can find you and your team, and what may be coming down the pipe from your perspective, real quick. We've got about a minute left.
Yeah, but I've got a number of channels on different social media platforms, whether it's YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn. The best place to find me is going to be on a website called itschrishamilton.com. ITS Chris Hamilton. That's going to have links to each of my social channels. There's some video content that I share there. I'm really passionate about sharing what's going on in the healthcare and insurance economy, educating employers, educating individuals. There's a host of resources on that site and links to all of the resources that I openly share. My goal is to help 1 million people during my career, and not all of them are going to be clients of mine.
Yeah.
I want to democratize the solution in what we're doing with our employers so that people ask better questions, they get more information, and therefore can make better decisions for themselves, their companies, and their families.
It's called freedom and liberty. That's what we Americans believe in, and we should strive to get back to that when we overstep and everything. Well, Chris Hamilton, thank you very much, sir. We appreciate it. Great show, folks. You got to go back and watch it once we get the post-production version posted up there. And tomorrow's Truth Thursday. I'll see you then on the Rob Maness Show here at World YouTube Network.
You're watching Worldview 2, built on the 35 years of Worldview books, documentaries, research, high-profile interviews, and the radio and television broadcasts of Brannon Howse.
Take a look at the water you just poured. It looks clean. It tastes fine. But what's really in it? Lead, fluoride, arsenic, chlorine, pesticides, PFAS forever chemicals, pharmaceutical residues, and bacteria. Every single day, these toxins flow straight from your tap into your glass, into your family. It's time for Sentry H2O from Worldview Water. Sentry H2O is the ultimate water treatment technology, designed to remove harmful toxins, balance your water's pH, and enrich it with essential minerals